Hey, it's Chuck. We are not bemoaning the noon kickoff. We are now owning it. It's a badge of honor. We're the lunatic fringe that defines our coach's legacy when it comes to this game. They don't get to define that outside the family. We're cut from a different cloth. We're Ohioans. He's got it all, man. He's even got the jaw. You know the jaw. You see that jaw, and you're just like, yeah, man, that's a dude. Do I want Michigan to beat Oklahoma? No way in hell. I don't know what world I'm living in. This is insane to me. And if you saw my outburst, I apologize. It's showtime now. It is showtime, and welcome to Chuck on Bucks. I was coming down here to shoot some segments, and I figured I might as well just go ahead and pop it up live. Didn't have a show this morning, and we've got some announcements, though. We will on Saturday. I decided that we're going to stream during the Buckeyes game, so Saturday night we will be streaming during the primetime hour while the Bucks are on in the other games. So if you like that sort of thing, pop in and hang out. We'll be here chopping it up in the chat. Appreciate you guys for popping in. Hopefully some of you guys will get to the game at the shoe, the new and improved shoe, cheering on the Buckeyes, who are not going to let up on the Bobcats. You guys remember how it used to be in these games early in the season against like a Youngstown State, relatively like a tight first half, couple of touchdown lead in the third, sleepwalk to like a 34 to 17 point win. Did Ryan Day consider easing up against Grambling? No. Why would he? Here's what he had to say when asked about that.
Ryan, did you consider taking a knee at the end before scoring the final touchdown against Grambling?
No, we were just going to keep getting better.
No, we were just going to keep getting better. And I love it. Like, that's what the money's for, man. These guys are getting paid a ton of money to come in. They know what time it is. Their coach talked about knowing what time it was. And I'll be honest, watching back that all 22, there were quite a few of those Grambling kids that were giving the Buckeyes the business after the whistle on a few of those plays, particularly Bo Jackson, who we're going to get to talking about a little bit today because of some slander that I've got to clear up. There's some people been lying on Bo, saying that he fumbled the ball, trying to stretch it over the goal line. That is not what happened. And I don't know if it's any better what actually happened, but that's not what happened. So we got to clear that up. But those Grambling State boys, man, definitely giving them the business. And I really like the attitude of Ryan Day not letting the foot off the gas in these games where, the opponent's obviously overmatched, because it's just like, you got these dudes, these walk-ons, they all got to play, right? The Ohio State, like 85 guys got to play. Guys, some of them will never step foot in a real game on the shoe again. Like, they got one shot in their whole career, and they got it done. And I love that. And when we look back, Tress wasn't like that. Tress would pull way up. He'd, not embarrass anybody. Urban, even to a certain extent, he wasn't quite this cutthroat with these kind of games. I wonder if it'll be different with Ohio. I don't mean to say like, yeah, they're a better opponent, but I wonder if it'll be different like with the philosophy. I don't know. But as for those Bobcats, the line against Grambling was the Buckeyes were 55-point favorites. They are 31-point favorites against the Bobcats. And they got a quarterback named Parker Navarro, who against Rutgers rushed for almost 100 yards and then another 90 yards rushing against West Virginia. So I think it's a really good test for the Buckeyes right before they go out to Washington in 2 weeks to take on Damon Williams, who is a true dual threat quarterback that kind of reminds me a little bit of Kyler Murray. Explosive, a little smaller, really fast, and really has a great arm. I mean, he could throw it long. They got a really good receiver as well. So that'll be a real test out in Washington, a great environment, really loud. But now they're going to have played Arch, the kid from Grambling, and Parker Navarro. And they played them all the same way because they're all threats to run. On third down, they were bringing in the three down lineman with Curry at nose and then lining up Arvell Reese about 2 yards behind, and his responsibility was the quarterback. So he's essentially the spy, but if he wants to get a little frisky, he can shoot the gap and go get him if he wants. And we saw that on third down against Texas. We saw it against Grambling. I assume we'll see it against Ohio as well. And there has been a lot of talk about Kenyatta and Caden Curry and not much pressure, not much sacks from the edges. And, I think a lot of this is the kind of quarterbacks they've been playing, trying to make sure that they don't escape the pocket and not really giving those guys the green light as much as they otherwise would have with a more true pocket passer. So I don't think we're going to see some explosion from them against Ohio and or Washington, really. And Washington's got a really good offensive line as well. But we will get more into the Ohio game tomorrow with some predictions and whip around the country and go through our time slots as we always do, our viewing slots, as well as our picks of the week. And again, Saturday night for that Peacock game, we will be here watching the games live. You know what I just remembered? When you're watching the Peacock game, you can't do the quad box like I usually do with YouTube. I have the quad box up, and the Buckeyes are one of them, and then I'll make them the big screen or whatever. That sucks, man. I hate the Peacock thing. Just one game though. And hey, I got the subscription because I did exactly what I told everybody not to do on the show last year. I said, remember, if you don't want Peacock, to cancel your subscription. I told everybody after the game, I forgot myself. So here I am. I go to order the thing. Oh, I still have it from last year. And obviously I've never watched it. Anyway, we got some things to talk about today. My list is long. My headache is bad. Didn't sleep last night. Got in trouble. I talk in my sleep right now. Sometimes my wife thinks this is funny. She records me. I talk nonsense. Apparently last night I said something that pissed her off and she's not talking to me today. I don't know what it was. I swear I'm innocent. Anyway, it is what it is. But Ohio State President Ted Carter did some talking as well. And it is pretty clear that an Ohio State, maybe Michigan hand-in-hand battle with the Big Ten is shaping up when the deal comes up. And that'll be in 2030. We will talk a little bit about that. There are some people who think Ohio State and Michigan don't have any leverage against the Big Ten. I totally disagree. It's a really interesting conversation. So we're going to get to that. I also want to talk about this Ohio State 2025 defense, as Ryan Day talked about. Oh, you know what? Ryan Day talked about the recruiting class in 2026. I want to talk about that as well today. When it comes to recruiting the state of Ohio, there is a practice that is very antiquated that just really needs to die. And with this Landry Brede offer, Landry Brede, an offensive lineman from Mentor, who the Buckeyes are trying to flip from NC State. And I just want to kind of point out the slow playing practice and why it's so antiquated for the state of Ohio with the 5th most top 300 prospects in the country. And now that the roster limits are higher, it just makes no sense anymore. But we will get to that, of course, your comments. But today we're starting with 25. I want to show you guys something. So Bo Jackson, number 25, by the way, if you didn't know, he's got a brother on the opposite side of the ball, also wears 25, walk-on linebacker. He's from Villa Angeles St. Joe's up in Cleveland, the 216. I beat them in high school. They whooped us 2 years ago. Bo Jackson came down to Akron, had a 90 and a 60-yard touchdown run as a junior. It was like game 2 of the season. That was my welcome to Bo. I didn't know who he was before then. Yeah, that dude's special. But I really like him as a player. I think he's awesome. And the talk about him has been huge this week, and understandably so. People are talking about how many carries he's going to get this week against Ohio. And there's another slow, steady beat coming from out there. Hold on, he's just a freshman. He can't protect. He's a freshman. What about the fumble? You know, the same folks who probably said this when Maurice Clarett was a freshman and they wanted Lydell Ross to get more carries. The situation kind of feels similar. But the excitement over the big-time running back and the good-looking back who's above him as well, but, you know, hasn't looked great so far in James Peoples. Obviously, both have a lot of promise, but Bo seems to be on a different level, and everybody can kind of see that. So they're pointing out how mad the coaches were when Bo got pulled off the field for, quote, reaching the ball over the goal line and fumbling. And did you see that? It kind of looked like that. I looked at it from the other angle, took some still shots, which I'll show you. That's not what happened. But we went down to the press conference on Tuesday, and Ryan Day was asked about Bo, obviously, and I want to play his answer. As I'm sitting here, I couldn't wait to hear what he had to say about a lot of these young guys. And here is what he had to say about Bo.
You know, I think he's getting better every day.
Ryan, how much stock do you put into what Bo did on Saturday, both the good and then that last play, the I don't know, coaching message with ball security?
Yeah. Every play is an opportunity to get better. And I think that's what we're really trying to hammer home right now is that, you can't circle opponents on your schedule. You have to continually grow with the process. And, if you understand that, it's about us, it's about our training, it's not about the results. So what I mean by that is like, it's not about our opponent, it's not about the scoreboard. So, whatever you do in your training is going to ultimately reflect, how you respond in, really pressure environments. So we're going to coach these guys the best we can. I think sometimes it's difficult, when you're in a matchup that isn't even, which is what it was. And again, by the way, going back and watching the film on Grambling, I thought those guys played really hard.
All right, you get the point. He continues. Obviously, this is something Ryan Day is good at, man. He will get a question, say a lot of words that don't address the question at all. He said nothing about Bo there, spoke in generalities, spoke about Grambling. Why didn't he say anything about Bo? I don't know. One can just deduce maybe he feels differently than he does about Riley Pettijohn, who he was also asked about, the freshman on the other side of the ball, who obviously made a huge impact on the game and looks like a future All-American.
Yeah, it's a sometimes I know the score was great, but it's sometimes hard to pick a player of the game in a game like that when maybe guys didn't get a ton of reps, but in a short sample of plays, he had a lot of production, so it spoke for itself. And we did what was right and gave it to him, even though he's a freshman. It's kind of rare, but it's the right thing to do. And we can't not give it to him because he's a freshman. He deserves it. And but I also know he knows is that the challenges that are coming are going to be a lot different than we faced this past week. But hey, you got to take those. This is what we're just talking about. When you have reps, and let's just say it's 15 reps, you go as hard as you possibly can, and then the more you play like that, the more you're going to get on.
All right, so we got a ton of praise for Riley, win the defensive player of the game. Specifically talking about Riley, and we got nothing about Bo, nothing about the fumble, nothing about trying to reach the ball across the goal line, nothing about how good he looked, nothing about anything, just all generalities. And I don't know what to take from it. I don't know how to read into it. I don't know, but a lot of people are speculating. The question about Riley was a little more direct because it was specifically about winning the defensive player of the game, which is kind of hard to spin out of. But why no comment about Bo? Now, some people are saying, obviously, he didn't talk about Bo because he's mad at him over that fumble. You can't fumble when you're inside the 20-yard line. This is why you can't play a freshman back. You need a trustworthy back. Can't be out there trusting a freshman running back. They make boneheaded decisions like reaching the ball across the goal line, trying to score a touchdown. When you're inside the 20, you need a senior like C.J. Donaldson who you can trust, a guy who will take his yard and just go down. And we saw C.J. Donaldson in a goal line situation, our senior running back, and this happened, which I find odd. Nobody seems to be talking about. C.J. Donaldson dropped a pitch on the 10-yard line. So while I'm hearing all these people criticize Bo for being accused incorrectly of reaching the ball across the goal line, listen, mistakes happen. They happen for everybody. They happen for a senior. They happen for a freshman. Now, here's the video of what actually happened with Bo.
Here comes counterplay. Jackson to the outside. Jackson.
Looks like he reaches out from that angle.
Looked like he was out of bounds before the ball popped out of his hand. Down to the 2-yard line. Trying to get my eyes on running backs.
See the red glove on the ball. By the way, this is an awesome still shot. This kid just hanging on him. It's kind of like a 1 in 500 play. He makes a great play, the defender. Trips it out and it flips out. As Jake Butt is saying, you don't reach with the ball. So it wasn't some immature freshman blunder. It was a really good play by the defender, and it can't happen. It can't happen, nor can C.J. Donaldson's fumble happen. Good thing that neither of them resulted in a turnover. My point is screw-ups happen for everybody, senior, freshman, and throwing that on him as this big freshman error, it's just incorrect, as you can see. Now, Don't know what to make. Don't know what to make out of Ryan Day's answers, but I'm going to set it at 8.5. 8.5 carries for Bo against Ohio. I'm going to take the over. But I want to take a minute to also give some love to Isaiah West, one of our favorites here, who once told us on the show that he was very surprised when he met Ryan Day that he wasn't like he thought he'd be or what he heard he would be, because he had heard Ryan Day was a bit of a jerk. So he was very happy that Ryan Day was very nice. Isaiah showed himself incredibly well. A couple of really nice runs, got a touchdown over 10 yards, showed some great vision, decisiveness, and he's going to be a good one. And I've been saying since the beginning of this class of 2025 that he is the single most puzzling evaluation in ranking that we've seen in one of these Ohio State classes in a couple of years. A 3-star, like 800th ranked player in the country, even after Ohio State came calling and he committed to Ohio State. Normally you'll see them take another look and realize, oh, we missed one here. They didn't with him. He's big, he's strong, he's not a top-end burner like Bo, but he accelerates fast, great vision, and you just kind of watch his high school film, and he's constantly making play after play that just effort. His quads are enormous. Matter of fact, I got a little short, I think, from, is it loaded up here? Yeah, let me play this short for you. Something about you decommitting from Kentucky. That's your thighs. Your thighs are ridiculous. Like, is that a family trait? Is that something you worked really hard on? Is it annoying to constantly talk about them? They look silly.
Yeah, that's the story of my life, man. I would say in my family, I'm definitely the one that has it the craziest, but it's definitely in the family. I mean, obviously, I work for it. I don't skip leg day at all, but it's definitely a family thing.
Yeah. Quadzilla over here. Quadzilla indeed. I mean, the dude is quite a specimen. And when you watch that kid on film, I just think he's going to be a total fan favorite, man. He is a physical runner, the kind of guy that gets us really hyped, finishes runs like Carlos Hyde. And it's going to be a lot of fun watching both him and Bo kind of grow up together in that backfield. So really excited. You got two excellent backs there. I saw my buddy Mick Walker. By the way, not only that, but Isaiah West really reminds me of Emeka from a personality standpoint, where he's just confident, professional, like he's probably got a great credit score, just way mature beyond his years. And I talk to a lot of these guys in that age group, and I've got sons that age group. Like, some of them you talk to and you're like, oh, this one's different. That's Isaiah West, man. Totally different type of cat. But Mick Walker from Letterman Row tweeted about Isaiah, and he said, what do you say? If there's any stock left, I think I bought it all, but buy some stock of Isaiah West. And one of the Buckeyes tweeted underneath, Juck's already had it for a year. And he said, well, he's been on it for a year too, so we're going to have to share. But then somebody said, Juck, how can you buy Bo and Isaiah? You can't just buy all the running back stock. Now, here's the thing. I always thought Bo would be a better back. He clearly has better traits. He's faster. He's got breakaway speed. But what I thought about Isaiah goes back to the bottom 10 of the class. And we've talked about this before, Rick. The bottom 10 of every recruiting class, if you get 3 guys to hit, that's average. 3 guys that end up being a contributor out of that bottom 10. If you get 4 contributors out of the bottom 10, you're doing a really good job in this era. And that's not, around college football. That's at Ohio State. That's how much attrition we have now from the bottom 10 members of a recruiting class. Me buying stock in Isaiah was that I was 95% sure from the very beginning that at some point he is going to be one of the hits. He's going to be a solid contributor and eventual starter at Ohio State. And, different levels of career trajectory. Bo's, a little bit different of a talent, but Isaiah's got everything it takes. He's not going to be denied. So that's what I meant by that. And the fact that he was so undervalued just irked me, man. It really did, because that's a guy that was committed to Kentucky, and that was his biggest offer. Now he's out here running the ball as a freshman at Ohio State. That's how fine the line is in recruiting, man. From a crap SEC school, which, by the way, the only reason he chose Kentucky was the SEC, to literally the top program in the country, just because he got lucky that one coach, Carlos Loughlin, noticed him when he was out at Oregon. And that's the difference, man. Honestly, that could change your whole career. Just that one guy noticing you. And a lot of it has to do with those rankings, which is why, I get very irritated when guys are underrated like that. So anyway, he's going to be a total dude. Anyway, I think we'll see both of them on Saturday. I think both will eventually be starting running backs. I know that Carlos Loughlin loves both of them. It wouldn't surprise me if next year we saw a three-headed monster with the two of them and James Peoples. We saw that plenty of years at Alabama, where there were three very productive backs. We saw it at Georgia a couple years when they had three guys that were worthy of it. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm really excited. Let's all make sure we all like the show today. We're going for a big milestone in subscriptions. If you could help us out with that, that would be awesome. But let's get into this little recruiting tidbit before we roll into the Buckeye defense and Ted Carter. President Ted Carter. Always love when he has something to say. Ryan Day also did comment about the 2026 recruiting class. He was asked about it, which surprised me. I didn't think anybody was going to talk recruiting at this press conference, but here's what he had to say about the 26 class.
Have tried to do with this year's class.
Yeah. Well, it really comes down to, once you get to December, that's what's going to matter. You've seen, and now more than ever, where you see guys, commit someplace, go somewhere else, and things change. So, we feel like we have some really good guys committed right now, and we're going to make a hard push here over the next couple months to finish out the class, and then figure out what's right in the transfer portal for us. But we feel like it's really important to make sure we have the right guys and the right fit, and our coaches are working hard towards that, and have all confidence in the world we're going to sign a great class.
Right guys and the right fit. That's 1A for them. They don't want to bring guys in that aren't that and just end up getting flushed out of the program. And they identify, a couple hundred of those guys every year. You're at a class of 21 right now, soon to be 22, I believe, with mentor lineman Landry Brede, who is going to flip from NC State to Ohio State. He's coming to take his visit. And what he said there was, it's kind of funny because it's like this reflexive thing that as people who really follow recruiting, like me and a couple of guys in here, like my buddy General Chrome, like guys like us that follow recruiting a lot, when we're talking recruiting in like June and Ohio State misses on a recruit and it's like, oh man, we missed on a recruit. The retort from people who don't follow recruiting is wait till December. And when Ryan Day talked about, December, it was like, oh no, he said it. It's like the dreaded retort, right? I don't know. You'd understand if you followed recruiting closely what that meant. But essentially, it's like we're hoping that guys come available so we can go get them. That's kind of what that sounds like to me. And that's not always the greatest strategy. You would prefer to see that they had their hooks in on somebody, as you do need some help at corner. You need some help at edge. And that is certainly probably not coming in the form of any top prospect. The top 300 right now, because the recruiting calendar has moved up, like 90% of the top 300 already committed. June is kind of where these guys are all taking their official visits and committing before the season, when it used to be just a few years ago, they would take their officials during the season and then commit before December. So yeah, waiting till December used to be a thing. Now, there is a project kid right now out of Shelby, Ohio, that they're taking a look at, 6'5", 235. He looks aggressive, muscular, poor competition, average lateral quicks. Doesn't look immediately like an Ohio State offer, but got space on the roster. And where do you take flyers when you have space on the roster? On the lines of scrimmage, first and foremost, especially from Ohio, which kind of leads me to the next topic. As you know, or maybe you don't if you're new around here, I'm kind of old school in the type that I think if you are going to take a flyer on a 3-star kid who looks like a project, that you don't bypass an Ohio kid project to go pick a project from somewhere else, because that Ohio kid brings an intangible that an out-of-state kid doesn't have. And not everybody sees it that way anymore, and I get it. You'll never convince me otherwise, because I was that kid. My friends were those dudes. Jake Cook was that kind of dude, and we see him every year. Guys that would walk on their knees over glass playing high school football in Ohio to get a sniff from Ohio State. And we see a guy like Jake Cook now living his dream and doing so well. The obstacles that he overcame to get that offer, it's awesome. It's special. And when you carry that with you into the Ohio State program, it stays with you and it stays in the program and it means something. And, that's just my view on it when it comes to Flyers. Now, I don't think it makes any sense to take the particular tack that we have seen for 40 years now when it comes to slow playing Ohio kids. And it's really got us in a jam recently. Let's say, for instance, what I mean by slow playing, for those of you who are not into this world, if you like a kid, let's say you like a kid, you're kind of iffy on him, you might want to offer him, and he's from North Carolina. Well, you go ahead and offer him. But if he's from Ohio, in this weird twist, you wouldn't offer him. And the reason you wouldn't offer him is because the conventional wisdom is you'd be better off to wait, because you really need to be sure about a kid from Ohio. Because if you offer that kid from Ohio and you're not sure, and you might want to, might back out on that offer, you're going to cause all sorts of problems. All the high school coaches are going to hate you. You're never going to get another prospect out of that city, maybe even that county. And that's kind of the way it's always worked. So Ohio State and other schools like Ohio State that are the big school in their state do this thing where they kind of slow play these guys and wait to give them the offer. And you see that right now. We're just seeing it with Landry Brede, right? Landry Brede committed to NC State, and Ohio State, he was, they knew all about him. We've talked about him for a long time here on the show. Well, they had other plans, and when those other plans don't work out, all right, you go kick the tires on this local kid and see if you can flip him from NC State. There's just a different scenario going on now, right? Like NC State, he's a pretty big time recruit. He's one of their top 10 recruits, and they're maxing out their $20 million. For Ohio State, he's in the bottom third of the class of priorities. They're maxing out their $20 million. So now you've got this big dollar discrepancy. Now, I don't think it matters with Landry Brede. I think he's going to be a Buckeye. But you can just kind of take this scenario all over the place with these different kinds of scenarios where they've slow played guys from Ohio, and it hasn't worked out. Adam Guthrie, 4-star offensive lineman, guy had 32 offers, 6'7", 290-pound tackle, moves really good, had camped at Ohio State, and they didn't offer him for so long. And they literally waited, no joke, till the day after Georgia offered him, the very day. Which, how does that make you feel? Like a little slighted? Wouldn't you feel a little slighted? Maybe think like maybe they don't actually want me. They just want to keep me in the wings. And sure, of course, we know that's exactly what happened. He ends up committing to Clemson. Now, Ohio State would like to have him in the class, but at that time, they had guys they wanted more above him. And there's, a skill to this and luck to it, how the pieces shape together. It's never going to be perfect. But in the era that we're currently in, I think this makes no sense anymore to do this when you think you have a borderline Ohio guy. Because now you've gone from 85 scholarships up to 105. Now, the 105, everyone you add takes money off the cap, right? So it costs you and gives you a little less money to work with. But you've got flexibility now to make some of these offers earlier and accept them with confidence, particularly when it comes to offensive and defensive linemen. That's where we take those flyers to keep those kids home. If it doesn't work, they can now transfer out. No harm, no foul. It's good on their resume. Everybody's happy. But you sure as hell don't want to see them go and develop somewhere else. And sometimes we see that happen when they're juniors or seniors. And I feel good for those Ohio kids and understand why, Ohio State wasn't in on them at the time. They needed a lot of development. Ohio State usually ended up with a better prospect. Is what it is. That's how it goes. But sometimes they're a guy that Ohio State really wanted. They just waited too damn long to offer him. And you instantly know, man, that was a screw up. And that is the case with Chaz Coleman. And I brought this up the other day, and I'm just having a really hard time getting over this one, man. Like, this isn't a hindsight 2020 type of deal. I can dig in the archives and pull up us breaking down the film of Chaz Coleman. Chaz Coleman was the real deal, man. The real deal. He is 6'5", 240 pounds, a basketball high flying dunker, averaged like 16 points a game, a quarterback, a safety, a linebacker, an edge. He was a rare one out of Warren, Ohio, a true dynamic edge rusher. And Ohio State had him on camp. They had him camp in June and didn't choose to offer him till late November. Top 300 kid and rising steadily. And now he is at Penn State. I mean, to tell you, like, the athleticism on this kid just jumps off the page. There's no denying it. By the time that they got around to offering him, he was going to come for a visit, but then Penn State talked him out of it. And it was just too late. Penn State had their hooks in him. And we are sitting here, you know, we talk about the big time edge rusher misses, and they always sting, right? They're hard to get, man. Talk about the Dylan Stewarts of the world, the 5-stars that everybody in the country wants. But I don't expect Ohio State to land even 25% of those kind of guys that they're in on, even 15%. Like, it's hard to land those type of dudes. They're rare. Everybody wants them. But when they're in your backyard and nobody is even in on them, and somehow you either couldn't see it or wanted to slow play the kid, that is just terrible, man. That's terrible. And this one stinks. Charles Power said his game reminds him so far at Penn State of watching Dylan Stewart last year. That's Chaz Coleman at Penn State in year one. And this is a guy playing on a loaded defense as a true freshman, number 3 team in the country. The list of Ohio players that Ohio State wanted that got out of state in 2024 and 2025 to places like Oregon, Penn State, USC, Clemson, North Carolina, Alabama, Texas A&M is longer than anybody could have imagined before NIL. In fact, I remember doing a show, several of them, back when I first started the show, and Trey McNutt, 5-star safety out of Shaker Heights, I knew he wasn't going to go to Ohio State, and people were laughing at me because it was so far-fetched for them to imagine that a 5-star from Cleveland, whose dad played at Ohio State, wasn't going to end up at Ohio State. And truthfully, it had been a while since we had experienced like 5-star guys like that leaving the state. And now we've seen just gobs of top Ohio prospects leaving the state. But none of them, in my opinion, we can go back and talk about, you know, the Justin Hills of the world, the Rock Hills of the world. What are they? These are guys that are big time recruits who are also big time in on the money end of it with Oregon, with Alabama. And that makes things different now, right? That makes things very different. Like, now it almost seems you take away, when you get involved in this money thing, you take away a little bit of the, I don't know, the hometown discount's gone, and it doesn't feel like the same connection as a local kid from Warren just getting fought over by Ohio State and Penn State. That's the point. Nobody knew about him. This wasn't a big time Dylan Stewart, Justin Hill type deal. Nobody knew about him. He's right down the street. You had him on camp. And I think, and I hope that we see a lot of this rectified with the in-state kids, the slow playing of guys like Braden Feaster at Hoban right now. And I could go on and on about the class of 27 already. But I hope that we start to see an end to this. They get their hooks in early and get to those guys before somebody else can get to them, because you can take more borderline guys now. And I think that those positions should be invested into local guys who are those borderline guys. Now, Chaz Coleman wasn't a borderline guy. And I think that when we come back, hopefully in a couple of years, this will be over with. It'll be much better. We're not going to see 10 impact guys, 10 impact players in the last 2 years leave the state. But Chaz Coleman, I believe, will be the face of all these guys, the one that really stands out over Justin Hill and Trey McNutt and Vic Singleton and on we go. It'll be Chaz Coleman. That's the one that stings. The Chazmanian devil stings the most, And that one is going to consistently be egg in our face when we watch this kid showing out at Penn State for the next 3 years and then a top 10 pick. He's that good. That's just what it is. Anyway, big noon kickoff, obviously really irritating to a lot of us. Let me get to I want to get to Brennan's question here before I move on. Juck, do you think the Buckeyes circle back around on guys like Carson Baker and KJ Ford if Billy Napier is on the hot seat at UF? It's an interesting question. So Carson, I don't for Carson, potentially for KJ Ford, but it's when we talk about these guys that are committed, right? Let's say they're committed, coach gets fired. Do we see GMs now go and try to up their offers to keep them in? Like, look, I'm going to get a really good coach in, and then up their offers even more. And we know he was a high guy getting money anyway. We've not seen a lot of these big spenders, coaches get fired in the meantime to really have any baseline to know how that's going to roll when that goes. You know what I mean? So going to be an interesting case study if we see that happen. Now, I'm really interested in that game Friday, Florida and LSU. I'm actually going to be rooting for Florida because I want to see LSU get knocked off this pedestal that I don't feel they deserve. LSU sitting in a top 3 position just doesn't jive with me after that win over not as good as we thought Clemson, and was like a 21-point win over Louisiana Tomato Can last week. Not even that big of a win. It was terrible. I just despise Brian Kelly, man. By the way, he's the most hated coach in the country. Brennan thinks, I think KJ Ford is the more likely target of the two. We're good on running backs. Yeah. Carson Baker, a game breaker, but I don't see him as having a ceiling, maybe just a little bit higher than Favors, just a touch, but kind of the same guy. I think that everything is all systems go and all in on David Gabriel George for 2027. The relationship is great. I think the Buckeyes lead there, and I think they're going to spend to make sure that happens because they really, really believe in him. They're type of guy, like everything fits perfectly. And if that happens, you got, super stud Bo, year between with Favor, a guy with high upside, steady high floor, and then superstar DGG. All good. Now, let's get to the Big Ten, Big Noon, the TV contract, Fox, and all this garbage. Now, we're stuck with the Fox situation right now in the Big Noon kickoffs. I think that next year we are going to see some concessions from Fox, and we're going to see one of those games, either Illinois or Oregon at home, be a night game. We got 3 decent games next year at home. The game, Oregon, and Illinois. Obviously, it's not going to be the game. So Ohio State is going to ask Fox for a concession for Oregon or Illinois to be a night game. And obviously, we hope that's Oregon. That would be fantastic. But the deal ends in 2030. And this is the deal that made the Big Ten so rich. Every single program in the Big Ten got a $50-ish million raise, not total, a raise from the old deal with this new deal that goes to 2030. So President Ted Carter was given an interview with USA Today yesterday, Ohio State president, and they were kind of prodding him to talk about what the ACC is doing with their new uneven revenue sharing model. Basically, Florida State and Clemson were suing the ACC, and as a way to resolve this whole thing and keep Clemson and Florida State in the conference for now, they are distributing the revenue unevenly now. So they used to all split it evenly like they do in the Big Ten, except for the new members. Some of them got a half share right now. And instead giving the money based on what you bring to the conference, right? Florida State, Clemson bring this much more eyeballs, making the deal worth more. They should get this much more money. So as it currently stands, the Big Ten, even Steven, and Carter was asked if he believes the Big Ten should adopt what they're doing in the ACC. And he said, it doesn't matter what Ted Carter thinks, but I think the conversation will be had. Then he went on to say, I will say there's only a couple schools that really represent the biggest brands in the Big Ten. You can see that by the TV numbers. Look at what we just went through with the Texas game. We had 16 million over the whole game, and it peaked at 18 million That's the most in an opening game in history. That's what happens when you put the Ohio State brand out. He did not want to discuss specific conversations that have taken place in the Big Ten about this. So now, as I said, this goes till 2030, and then this deal's over. So 5 years, and the deal ends with currently Fox, main partner, then CBS and NBC. And it's pretty clear and obvious that the programs who bring in the most to the table, bring the most into the conference for everybody else to get rich off of, would want a bigger piece of the pie. Now that they've seen the ACC do it, they're going to be coming for theirs. And of course, this was always going to be the case when you've got a conference with programs like Ohio State and Michigan, and then you look at the lower end of the conference, and there's schools that bring little to no eyeballs to the table at all, right? Like, it's a vast difference between Purdue and Northwestern and Ohio State and Michigan. And I just don't see any other way than this coming to a head in a big time fight. And when you look at Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, honestly, they bring in a lot of eyeballs too, a ton. Those three have carried this deal and the deal prior, right? And these other schools, honestly, this is what's made me so irritated about the Big Ten for 25 years, to be honest. Like, they collect the money, they don't invest it in football. Half the conference, that they don't care. They don't care to be successful at it. They show it on the field. They show it in their coaching hires, their assistant coaching pools. They don't care. And it's one of the biggest irritations I've had with the conference for the last 20 years during this SEC dominance. And it's one of the reasons I'm so bitter towards them and their leadership and Tony Petitti. That's a different story. But I don't feel bad for any of these schools now that they just got this $50 million raise off the backs of Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan, bringing in their money. And they get a cut of the playoff money for Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan. There's going to be huge ramifications here. Huge ramifications. Does the Big Ten bend to Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State, assuming the three of them click up? Maybe Oregon and USC and Nebraska are, going towards their side. Oregon will still be getting a half share, I think. You're going to have a battle of the bigs versus the littles here, or it's going to be Ohio State and Michigan on their own. That's kind of the way I see it playing out. We don't have any idea how this is going to look, but it's going to be a wild, interesting fight here. I happened to run across an article by a clear Buckeye hater named Matt Hayes. Matt Hayes, also of the USA Today, and I wanted to share with you what he had to say. He starts his article, "To this I say, the team that spent $41 million in 2024 to buy a national championship, the athletic program that generates more money than any other, with the exception of Texas, is apparently bleeding cash. Pray for them." All right. So we know where he stands right off the rip when it comes to Ohio State, saying that they spent $41 million now. I mean, from 20, then I heard 25. Now it's up to $41 million for that 2024 roster. It just doesn't end. It's going to be 75 by next year. He also brings up Ohio State doesn't win a championship without Quinshon Judkins, Will Howard, Seth McLaughlin. Like, needs to make sure he puts that in there. I don't know what any of this has to do with anything, but he continues. There's this teeny weeny problem with this "we deserve cash and they don't" philosophy at Ohio State. There's no leverage. To take a stand and demand more, there must be leverage. What are Ohio State and Michigan going to do? Threaten to leave to the SEC? Go it alone, independent? Please. Imagine the stones it takes to demand more money from a century-old conference of like minds and philosophies of strict solidarity with absolutely zero leverage. You want more money because you're Ohio State and Michigan and they're not? It's worse that Ohio State and Michigan believes the rest of the Big Ten should supplement their athletic coffers at the expense of their own ability to compete. The value isn't in specific terms, isn't in specific teams, it's in the conference. The Big Ten has shown some recognition of the need to help schools with smaller football stadiums through a ticket revenue sharing arrangement. All right, so this guy says the value isn't in specific teams, and he's talking about the value of these TV contracts. The value isn't in specific teams, it's in the conference. Those of us who are fans of Ohio State, obviously there are oh, geez. Thanks, Steve. Obviously, those of you who watch Ohio State football and know how often we are the feature product on the Fox main inventory, their big noon kickoff. And if it's not Ohio State, it's Michigan or it's Penn State. That's what they want. They don't even put any of the new West Coast teams on there because it would be too early. So those three schools carry the bulk of that deal, their biggest property. And it's not just that. It's all their advertising. It's everything that has to do with that. It's the fan bases of those three behemoths. So to say that he thinks that those three schools, and he's not including Penn State, but I am, Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan, what do you think is more valuable? I don't know. I don't know, but I'll tell you this. When push comes to shove, Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State, who was for a long time independent, could all do exactly what Notre Dame's doing. Ohio State unequivocally could. Notre Dame does damn well for themselves. They're rich as hell off their deals. They make their own schedules. They do whatever they want. And it probably isn't long before we end up in this NFL umbrella anyway. So I don't know what it matters, man. But Ohio State flexing on the Big Ten finally. As much as I really don't like this kind of behavior, I would prefer the rest of the Big Ten member institutions just offered Ohio State and Michigan a bigger piece of the pie and said, thank you for making us wealthy. But you got to do what you got to do. And this is going to be a fight. And I'm totally here for it. I find it a little disgraceful that it gets to this, but it is incredibly entertaining. I honestly think that without a doubt, look, you can't sit there representing your university if you are Wisconsin and just say, yeah, I'm actively going to sign this deal that's going to make us $10 million less a year. But man, it's only fair. These dudes drive the ship. They make the money for all of you. And then on top of it, get screwed and pigeonholed into their crappy big noon time slot. You know what I'm saying? My buddy Steve says, just logged on. I'm 35 minutes behind. Juck's wife's probably right. We'll not see the response live, but she is for sure right. Well, Steve, thank you. Appreciate the super chat. We're going to find out, I think, tonight, and I'll let you guys know. It's one of those looks in her eyes where it looks like she may not talk to me the rest of the night. So I don't know what the hell I said, but it wasn't good. It's not good for your boy. I mean, I went to give her my morning kiss, right? I go into her office every morning before I even fix my coffee and give the old lady a kiss, like a good old man, right? And she gave me the kiss. It's kind of cold. Like, what's going on? Nothing. You were talking in your sleep last night. All right, what'd I say? She's stone. Look through my skull, dude. All right. I guess we'll talk about it later. There's a whole lot of different options that could happen with this deal. I was even thinking, like, what happens if the Big Ten calls the bluff of Ohio State, right? And let's say Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State and USC and Oregon and Nebraska, what's that, 6 teams? You need 8 teams to make a conference. What happens if those 8 teams go grab two teams from the SEC who want to be part of something new, or Clemson and Florida State and Miami go grab, and then they all go and form a conference? That's immediately a power conference. Immediately. Like, that's a stacked conference, right? What happens if something like that happens? Like, there's a lot of different, that conference is worth a ton of money. And Ohio State has every reason to be irritated with this. By the way, Dave Portnoy, who Fox, one of the bosses of the Big Ten, apparently, Fox hired Dave Portnoy, this dude who just talked the other day about texting back and forth with Sharona Moore, tweeted at Chris Henry Jr., and he said in this tweet, he showed a picture of Larry Ellison, their big booster. His stock, I guess, he's the second richest guy in the world, and his stock went way up of his company, whatever the hell it is. And it said like something like "Let's talk" or something. Like, this guy actively trolling Ohio State recruits. They had him on our campus 2 weeks ago on their set. It's just so disrespectful, dude. It's so disrespectful. Now, as far as Ohio State leadership, I do like this tactic. I like them getting tougher with the Big Ten. I don't really like them having a lot of power. We listened to Ross Bjork literally say last week, nobody can argue more meaningful football is better. The problem is you can't just manufacture more meaningful football. There's this much football, this much postseason. He just wants to shift it to more postseason. It's all the same football. Watching a 7-5 team play an 8-4 team in mid-November is the same thing now in the regular season, even if you call it the postseason and make it, round one AAA, whatever the hell he wants to do. But when you relabel it and you rebrand it, it will make you a couple of bucks right off the rip. But all you're doing is watering down your playoff and watering down your regular season. But, these guys don't care about that. What do they care about? They care about the next 10 years on their watch. They don't care what happens in 20 years. They care about what happens now because that's what they're getting pats on the back for. Anyway, further, that article went on to say Ohio State made close to $340 million this year. I think it was $292 in 2023. And also said that there has been a lot of transfers from the athletic department to the general fund that profit from the athletic department. So the athletic department actively making a lot of money, even with this $20 million revenue sharing now. And we talk about all the ways that they are trying to generate revenue streams. And they do take the position that, it really needs to happen. You need to sell naming rights to this and that because all these new expenses with this revenue sharing, totally disregarding that they literally just got a $50 million raise. So 50, subtract the 20 million you got to pay. Okay, it's only a $30 million raise. But they are making money. Look, it's big business. I get it, but I just don't like faking it, man. Nobody can argue with the 32-team playoff. Come on, get out of here, bud. But in the meantime, we should get some benefit out of it, and the fight will be fun regardless. But anyway, I am in a great mood when it comes to the Buckeyes, guys. Last night I did my Buckeye Huddle primetime show, and it was a lot of fun. A lot of you guys weren't over there. I mean, I appreciate you guys. Look, the numbers are doing great over here on Juck on Bucks. I do need a couple more of you to follow me over there so that those go up a little bit as well. That would be awesome. Monday and Wednesday nights, prime time at 8 p.m. Pop it on the TV. Holler at your boy. I'm there. I'm there, everyone. But anyhow, I said that I believe right now, today, and I can say this again today, like I did yesterday, that if I took a snapshot of a day in the life of us sitting here today, that I could say right now, today, is the best moment of my life when it comes to Ohio State's standing nationally in college football. Ohio State, as the defending national champion, sitting as the clear, unequivocal number one. We've been here before, right? We've been here before in 2015. We were sitting as number one right now. This team, I'm comparing it to that team. And also that era also had Alabama with Nick Saban at his peak power, Nick Saban. So that team didn't really have the opportunity to be the unequivocal number one in college football. This Buckeyes team, number one, the way they're playing, vastly different than the 2015 team was playing. They look way hungrier than that 2015 team. And now there is no Alabama. Ohio State legitimately has the opportunity to take over the mantle as college football's single most powerful program if they're not there right now. And of course, Georgia won the championship in 21 and 22. Ohio State wins it in 24. Just imagine if that kick went in, Ohio State would be 22 and 24. Probably not, because those seniors wouldn't have come back for 24. You get the point, though. That's how fine the line is. That's how fine the line is between Ohio State and Georgia. A lot of people like to make that out to be like it's some big, that's 2-1. All right, man. It's this much. It's really just that much. But when we look at this team right now, this 2025 team, I want you to look back with me for a second after the Oregon game last year. Go out, lose to Oregon, devastating game, right? A senior-laden team, like they were everywhere, senior leaders everywhere, who came back to win a national championship, and they go out and lose to Oregon. The next opponent is Nebraska at home after a bye. So they got a week to lick their wounds, get things right, and they go out to play Nebraska. And what do we see out of them? Instead of taking out their anger and irritation on Nebraska, they looked like they didn't want to be there. It was the most uninspired Ohio State game of the entire year. You had Penn State coming up next week, and it was just a terrible effort. It looked pathetic, man. It really did. It didn't even look like the team. It didn't look like those guys. It was kind of an embarrassing performance. Of course, we know they picked it up and they changed their attitude and they went on to win the national championship, but not before they had another game like that against their rival. The team didn't look like the team that we think back so fondly of and love, really, until the playoffs. I actually think that Oregon game, they played inspired like that. They showed everything, even in a loss, but in the Penn State game as well. Those two games and then in the playoffs. But, there were some pretty uninspired performances along the way. And there were some times, look, I did the shows every day. There was a lot of people who were like, this is not the team I thought we would get with all these seniors. It just doesn't always feel like they're all in. And it's hard to even remember that because of the lasting image of that 4-game stretch was like, what is this, And that's what burns in your memory, and that's great. But there were definitely some patches through that year where it didn't quite feel like that. Of course, they had a lot on their mind, man. These guys passed up the NFL to come back and try to get that goal done. Adds a bit of a different dynamic. But when we look at this year's team, particularly the defense so far, and we look at Matt Patricia, and we look at how they're playing, the vibe, the energy, this defense looks faster and it is faster. Like if we just go player for player, it's faster. It looks nastier. It looks meaner, and they look tougher to prepare for. I think it's a more talented defense. I think it's on track to be a better defense right now. Obviously it's easy to say that through 2 games, but it just has a different feel to it that I think is, number one, it's way more fun. It is way more fun to play defense like this. That's why I was so excited about Patricia. I just love a coach who actually does what he says. And what I mean by that is every coach comes in and says, I play to the strengths of my players. I don't dictate what I do and then have the players do it. What they're good at, I put them in position to be most successful. They all say that. It's a hard thing to do. Matt Patricia already showing us how talented he is in that specific area. He is putting guys in position to do what they physically do best. And it is fun to watch, man, because there are a lot of guys who can do something pretty special on that defense now. And when we just look at the talent, look at the secondary, Lathan, 4th rounder, Hancock, 5th rounder, Denzel, a 5th rounder. This year, Jermaine Matthews, 1st rounder, IGB, 2nd-ish rounder, Jalen McClain, 4th rounder. Obviously, Caleb played with both, so you cancel him out, but that's objectively more talent this year in the secondary. At linebacker, last year you had Sonny Styles played with both, so you cancel him out. All right, 4th rounder Cody Simon versus Arvell Reese. Arvell's going to be a 1st rounder, man. If not early 2nd. Like the traits alone, the production, it's just going to be insane. So that's, technically an upgrade there, talent-wise, right? The NFL drafts on a lot of traits, skills, talents, measurables. Talent-wise, Arvell's a freak show. Much as I love Cody, I love Cody. But secondary linebacker, like talent upgrade. And then you go down to the defensive line, where I think it gets pretty interesting. Obviously, you had 4 defensive linemen drafted, right? So let's go with Tyleek first. He was a first rounder. All right. Cade McDonald, I think, is a first rounder. Cancel each other out. Ty Hamilton. Ty Hamilton was a 5th rounder. JT was a 4th rounder. So let's say, all right, Kenyatta Jackson, 2nd rounder, so higher than JT. Jack was a 4th rounder. Edric Houston, going to take another year, but I think he's going to be another 2nd rounder. I just feel like every single position group has upgraded unbelievably in talent. And I don't think I saw this coming going into the year last year, going into last season, looking forward to 2025, because I'm always looking forward to the next year. I thought, all right, when these guys leave, man, there's going to be a dip in talent because the guys that are going to be ready to play are just going to be a little too young. But the speed with which we're seeing them catch on and really get down to business, and the chemistry and the preparedness, I'm really impressed with the preparedness, right? The way these guys have looked so prepared, they looked way more prepared than Texas. And sure, they talked, well, yeah, of course they're prepared. They had all offseason to work towards Texas. Well, so did Texas. And Texas technically should have wanted that more. But the 2025 Ohio State defense looks more prepared. And at this point in the year, they look better than the 2024 defense did last year. So I am exceptionally excited for this defense. And because it is so good, it takes pressure off of that offense with your freshman quarterback. I just think it's cleared away the number 1 team right now, and I'm going to enjoy it, right? I'm going to enjoy it as I continue to take my snapshot every day and say that I'm living in the best day of my life of Ohio State football right now today. Things have never been better. By the way, I've got a lot of questions last night. The sweatshirt, I'm a little embarrassed to tell you where it's from. Now, I know everybody likes it. I liked it too. It's why I ordered it. My son sent it to me and said, Dad, do you like this? I said, hold up. I got to order this. So I ordered it. I said, yes, I like it. And it is from Hollister. Believe it or not. This is actually not the only Ohio State garment I have from Hollister. They make some pretty slick Buckeye stuff. Now, not a brand I buy on the regular, but I got to tell you, man, soft, medium weight, quality. It's good stuff. I love anything with the Buckeye leaf as I sit behind this Buckeye leafed microphone. All right, Terry. Now listen, Terry. Terry's over here saying Oregon's going to beat Penn State in a whiteout. And Terry, I think I agree. I do. I think they're going to go in there and get it done, man, which is crazy, isn't it? Isn't that nuts? Now this year at Chuck on Bucks, Ohio State has a $35 million roster. Yes. Just keeps on going up. Chuck during the workday. Indeed, my man. Troy is torn on the Penn State-Oregon game. Going 3 time zones and going to Happy Valley make for bad times for Oregon. I'm thinking, I hope they both expose weaknesses and that it's a good game. Yeah, that's a really good point. Oh, we got a Duckeye in here with us. What's he have to say? Penn State doesn't have the speed on defense. There's a reason there's so much consistency in the Big Ten. Everyone is physical. Only a couple teams are fast. All right. Well, you are going to have to deal with the Tasmanian Devil now. Don't forget about him. I don't know who I'll be rooting for in that game. I suppose I think I have to root for Penn State in that game because we want Penn State to come in undefeated, and for that to be, I think that'd be, well, yeah, that would be a top 2 matchup, right? That'd be 1 versus 2 right then. If we're both undefeated at that point and Penn State beats Oregon, who is, bound to be top 3 here pretty soon. Man, the Big Ten at the top is tough now. Isn't this great? USC's looking really good so far. And a lot of people are saying, are we not giving enough attention to USC? It's literally the exact same thing last year. I remember Chris came on with me and we were talking about, I was talking about Miami. He's like, no, it's not Miami. It's USC. They're the one. And they obviously flamed out, but they lost a lot of close games. We'll see if they can turn that around. But it has been a lot of fun. General Chrome, man, my guy. This will help at the hotel room tonight in case she's still pissed at you. I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you. That is always thinking about your guy here. Yeah, we might not see Juck for a while. Mrs. Juck about to put Bro to bed, and he keeps sleeping for a while. Hey, prayers out for Juck. Hey, man, I don't even know what to do. Like, I don't want to go back upstairs. I'm going to sit down here and chop up some shorts, some shorter episodes to release. Just keep my head in my work. For a new pillow from Troy, you guys are the best, man. I appreciate you, Troy. All my best buds, man. Definitely, I've got enough shirts to keep me warm. You guys know that. I don't know if you know this. I wish I could easily turn the camera around for you. I guess I could take a picture of it, but I literally moved a dresser down here to change shirts, right? Don't tell anybody. I literally have a wardrobe dresser there for shirts for the show because my bedroom is like a long walk from the studio, very long walk. So I don't want to go up to, I was having to do that, right? Like if I was wearing a button down shirt from work and I'd come down here and I would have, I want to wear a Juck on Bucks or a Buckeye something. So I would, have to go all the way up. So I said, forget this. We had this dresser that we were going to throw out and I had my sons bring it. I'm like that now, guys. I swear to you. That's terrible. I'm like that. When there's something to move, I tell my sons to do it and I don't do it myself anymore. My man, General Chrome, Day has created a monster. Best coach in the country. Those losses to Georgia and that team, which will not be named, were what helped make Day the coach he's becoming. Not sure he'd have given up play calling or been as cutthroat if they won them. It's an excellent point. When we saw in the offseason of 2023 to 2024, I believe a little bit of an uptick in I've had it. I'm not going to compromise my morals, but I am going to go a little bit more cutthroat. This is the top tier of football, and I want to be the best of the best, and I want to win a national championship. So I'm going to do things I might not otherwise have done, and that's just what it's got to be. Arvell is nasty. Dude looks like what Chase Young looked like on the line, just a bigger, stronger guy than everyone else at the position. He's an alien. Absolutely. Juck the next Hollister model. People taking Franklin and Sark to win the Natty are like gamblers who think red is due. Listen, I understand what you're saying, but then there is also the argument that a lot of people said that about Ryan Day too, right? Now, Ryan Day, obviously, dude, we just went to, where did we go that we just stayed at the Hilton? We stayed at the Hilton for something. Oh, well, we went down to the game. We went down to the Bucks game for Texas because I wanted to go to the Pickerington Central game on Friday because Wayne was coming in. And I went to that high school game. So then we stayed at this Hilton. And these people have called me like 5 times a day, every day since, from a different number. And it all says Hilton. I'll never stay at a Hilton again. I don't know how you cannot understand that people get so irritated with this. Anyway, Terry received concerning news from my doctor's office yesterday. They want a biopsy to see if I have the C word. Praise the Lord. Why? Because his ways are higher than mine. Terry, my man, prayers up for you, buddy. Keep me posted. Terry, a great guy, man. Terry's a great dude. Troy, just loading up the super chats. Thanks, buddy. Here's the play-by-play tonight. Mrs. Juck, you know what you did, and that's the end of the conversation. I'm married and I know how this goes. Hey, if you nail it, I will definitely give you your props, my man. Get cursed, stay dead. Yo, yo, yo. What's up, buddy? All right, friends, that is an hour and 10. I think I'm going to get rolling. Time to get a workout in and get some lunch. So I do appreciate y'all for joining me. I will probably be doing another episode tomorrow, talking about obviously the games and some other stuff. And in addition to that, Saturday night we will be live for the Buckeyes game right here in the chat. You guys watch it on your TV. I'll watch it on mine. We'll chop it up, and that's what we'll do. That's what we'll do. So I will talk to you then tomorrow. Appreciate you guys so much. Thank you to my dudes for the super chats today. Let me double check. I didn't miss anybody here. Got them all. All right. Thanks so much, guys. I do appreciate you, and I will talk to you soon. Chuck 'em Bucks.